This was my fiddle leaf fig. You might remember it from my last houseplant tour. It had almost hit the ceiling back then, and then it eventually did, completely outgrowing its space, and I had a decision to make, so I made it. I chopped it. And what you're looking at right now are the tips that were sitting in my special sauce. They've rooted, and these little white nubs you can see there, those are root primordia, new beginnings. A lot has changed since I last did a tour. Some plants have absolutely exploded, some have humbled me. This is not a curated highlight reel, just the real story of some of the plants. Today I'm taking you through some of the plants that have changed the most, and maybe some that you haven't seen in a long time. We're going to talk about my ZZ akebono, which has been on a journey. It had gorgeous yellow variegation, then it didn't. It came back and now it's green again. I think I finally know why. And one very large bird of paradise has become, I'll be honest with you, a bit of a problem. Later in the video, I'll also be sharing the results of some experiments, like the no-wash plant experiment. Would I do it again? Stick around and find out. So this is my giant fiddle leaf fig. The last time you saw this plant, it was pretty big, pretty tall, but in between that time and now, it grew all the way to the ceiling and I needed to chop it. So I cut the plant right about somewhere there, and the tips of those plants is what you saw earlier. But what's happened as a result of that cutting is that the plant has now activated different growth points. So instead of having one stem like I did before, there's this new stem over here and there's another one over there. So each of these two plants has now got two branches, which is so exciting. That means my fiddle leaf fig is now going to be a little bit more interesting than it used to be before. So what I'm going to do within the next few months, I would imagine, is I'm going to air layer this plant so I can keep the top, because, you know, I'm still going to have the problem of the plant hitting the ceiling, so I need to make it really, really much smaller. So I'm going to air layer it somewhere around there. And once those roots have developed, I'm going to chop it and I'm going to take those now tip cuttings and pot them up in LECA clay balls. So I've now got a plant that's got two plants in it. I've got a pot that's got two plants in it, and each of those plants will have two branches. That's going to be really, really, really exciting. The lesson that this is giving me is that, you know, as you get really successful in growing your plants in LECA clay balls, your plants can get really, really big really, really quickly. And then you've got another problem. What do you do with big plants? So you need to be able to think outside the box. Think about, you know, are you giving the plant away? Are you chopping the plant up? Because it can't just keep growing forever. Here we are with another massive, massive plant. This is my humongous bird of paradise plant, which, listen, this plant has just become so problematic for me. I don't know what to do. So I'm standing on the floor. I'm not standing on a stool. And, you know, I can't even, you know, it's literally hit the ceiling. The problem with this plant is I can't chop it. I can't air layer it. It is just so big and it's leaning. I have to lean it next to a wall. Otherwise it's almost falling out of the pot. It is insane. There's new growth. See, this one over here is new. There's this one over here is just unfurling. There's another one unfurling. And again, remember, this is winter, right? It's given me a pup as well. The plant has just gone insane and I don't know what to do with it anymore. I can't repot, because even if I repot it, where am I going to put it? The problem is I don't have enough height. I don't know. And because it is winter, so it's not very humid in my home. So when the leaves are unfurling, they're splitting, they're cutting, and it's not, oh my gosh, it is such a problem. I would love your advice. What would you do with a plant that is this huge? This is a plant that I started in LECA clay balls very, very small. I did a video on how to transition bird of paradise plants from soil to LECA, and these are the plants. So I've had this plant for quite a number of years, living successfully in LECA clay balls. And I have hit the big plant dilemma, the big plant problem. what the heck do I do? I can't just throw it out because that would be just such a waste of a beautiful plant. And to be quite honest, a plant like this would fetch quite a pretty penny if you wanted to go and buy a plant like this. So I don't know. What do you guys think? That is my crazy, crazy, crazy bird of paradise. This is my Thaumatophyllum bipinnatum, also called a tree philodendron, a plant that's got many names actually. This is a plant I have had in my collection for a very, very, very long time. It's a plant that I got. It was really, really small. It's growing in LECA clay balls, and oh my gosh, it is just absolutely divine. Those big leaves are just going absolutely crazy. It lives right at the front of my house. When you open the front door, which is directly in front of me, this is the first thing that people see when they come to our home. So I'm really happy with this one. It lives here. There's a window back there, but it's way too far away for it to mean anything. So it does have a grow light up there. So I'll turn that off. There you go. That's the grow light that lives up there, and that's how it shines on that plant. Keeping it in position here is quite something. Many times this plant has fallen over and there's been LECA clay balls everywhere, but I insist on keeping it in this spot. I will not move it. I put that light up there just specifically for this plant. I would love it to be a little bit higher up. It's sitting directly on the floor right now, but every time I put it higher up, the physics doesn't quite add up and it ends up on the floor again. But yeah, this is a plant that I am loving. I did do a video where I showed how I try to control this plant. So all the, the leaves aren't growing everywhere and they grow in a certain kind of direction. I've got a cage around it. It does go away to keep it in control, but it's still quite feral. I absolutely love it. I will never get rid of this plant. It did get thrips a few months ago, but that's all gone now. That's treated. And it's just beautiful. It's got these amazing area roots that just grow everywhere. They grow all over my floor and I love it. And sometimes I do tuck them back into the LECA clay balls so they can just, get out of the way. But see, this is one of them. It looks absolutely fantastic. So yeah, this is a massive, massive plant that's growing in my home in LECA clay balls, successfully loving life in LECA and semi-hydroponics. So when I chopped the tips of my fiddle leaf figs, I put them in my special sauce in this jar. This is a vase I got from IKEA, and I really love this vase because of the color. It's quite opaque, and so it doesn't allow too much light in, so you don't get too much algae on the roots and on your cutting itself. So I really, really love it, and I'll have a link to that in the description, or at least I'll tell you what the name is so you can find it in your IKEA. But it's really, really brilliant. So I put my special sauce in there, I put the tips in there, and I put them in front of a window. No air stone, nothing special, no supplemental lighting. And the amount of roots that this plant has given me is just absolutely phenomenal. That right, that's the 2 cuttings right there. Look at how amazing that is. And you can see this stuff that looks spongy, that is all the root primordial. See over there. So that's where the new roots come from. Look at how amazing that is. Look at the result. The result has just been absolutely fantastic. And what's brilliant is, that's the leaves there. Still looking very, very healthy and just looking absolutely fantastic. So I use Clonix Clone Solution and Root Zone in my solution, and I call that my special sauce because it is just so special. It gives results like this. But if you don't have those particular products, readily available to you, you can use anything that is a rooting agent and it will work. It will work, I think, but this one does anyway. Look at that. It is just absolutely beautiful. These plants are now ready to go into LECA. I will be potting them up and I will allow that plant to grow, and I'll have a new fantastic big fiddle leaf fig Do you remember the LECA poll that I made a few months ago? I did a LECA poll, a poll that is made entirely of LECA clables, no moss in sight, and I want to show you what it's doing now. This is my plant right here. It is climbing up that pole, looking fantastic. So we started, down here. The leaves were a little bit on the small side, and you can see as the plant is climbing, the leaves are actually starting to get bigger and bigger. And I do have that pole on a timer, so it's not on all the time. The water pump isn't on all the time, so it comes on and it comes off. And I've got these little lights here. That's what I've got as grow lights to be in front of it. It's not too much, but it's better than nothing, because the nearest window is all the way back there. And this plant actually needs light in order for it to get those big leaves, as you know. So I'm quite happy with the progress of, how things are going. It's still working. It's still working really, really well. So, and of course, there have been lots and lots of lovely suggestions from you guys about how I could have made this differently and made it better. And I appreciate all those. And I'm hoping that someone else will pick up that mantle and make another one, which is way better than mine, because I am not likely to do that anytime soon. This will be it for my LECA pole, and I'm loving it. I love it. Look at that. That's the newest leaf that hasn't hardened off yet. So I suspect that's going to get bigger as well. Okay, the big dramatic plants are behind us, but honestly, some of my other quieter wins have surprised me even more, starting with the ferns. And if you know ferns, you know that that's a sentence I didn't expect to be saying. This here is my rabbit's foot fern. Whew! It is a little bit heavy now. It's living in a 20 centimeter pot. I've had this plant for a few years now. Look at those rhizomes. Look at how gorgeous they look. It's pretty scary for some people. And it is living in LECA clables in a submerged setup. And yeah, let me show you. So that's the pot. It's a 20 centimeter pot, and yeah, I can't remember when I repotted it. It would have been quite recently, because those roots aren't yet peeking through the bottom there. But it's a plant that's doing so well. This plant survives even with my neglect. And you can see that sometimes the reservoir is a bit dry, because there's some dry, things over there. So that's on me. That's my bad. And my plant would probably be a lot bushier than it is right now if I wasn't neglecting it so much. Look at this bit here. There's some bits there that are a little bit dry, but all in all, it looks fabulous. My rabbit's foot fern, looking amazing. That there is my blue star fern. Whew. I need to move all the way back so you can actually see how big this plant is. I've had this plant for a few years now. A few years. It's been with me for a number of years. And I think when I first demonstrated this plant, I was demonstrating how I move ferns from soil to LECA. And it was a direct method. I just washed the plant and just straight into the LECA, and whew, my gosh, look at how massive this plant is now. It is so big and so heavy. It's living in I think it's an 18 centimeter pot in a submerged setup, if you can believe it. And, here we are. Look at that root system there. There's more nice roots going there. And you can see right there, there's something going on there. Whew. Look at that. Look at how healthy that plant is. In case you don't believe me, that is LECA clables there. There's the plant living in LECA clables. Whew. These plants are tiring me out because they are so heavy and I need to move all the way back. That is my blue star fern. Before I get to the alocasias, I want to show you what happened to my ZZ akebono. It had gorgeous yellow variegation, then it lost it. The yellow came back briefly and now it's green again. I think I finally know why though. This here is my ZZ akebono. Whew. It is a big plant that I'm sure you can see is not yellow. That is my plant over there. When I first got this plant, it was big and it was yellow. It had yellow variegation and it looked absolutely smashing. And I did a video showing how I successfully transitioned it from soil to LECA and it looked really beautiful. And this is what it now looks like. Nothing like what it looked like when I bought it. Honestly, you could think it's a completely different plant. And I did do a video which showed how that variegation went from yellow to green, and then at some point the variegation actually came back. And I run it through a few theories, and some of them being temperature. I thought maybe when it gets colder, then maybe that's when the variegation goes away. I thought maybe it's a light issue, so I gave it more light, and maybe that's it. But you know, the place where it was, you know, I moved it upstairs because I thought it was cold downstairs. It got nice and warm and then it went green again. So I'm thinking it really is a combination of the two things, temperature and light, because once winter hits is when it turns like this. And you can see the leaves that actually used to be yellow. You know, you can see all these sort of crumpled up leaves, dried up leaves. That's where the leaves were variegated. And you can actually see that some of the stalks, the little leaflets, they're quite sparse because the other ones have dropped off. And you can see here, this one here. This used to be a nice one and it's gone now because it was all variegated and those are gone. So yeah, my ZZ akebono is quite trying. But what is funny though is, look at that. That right there is actually new growth. So I think there were two, yeah, right there. Ugh. There's two of them. There's one here and right next to it is another one. So I think the ZZ akebono is testing me. It's the kind of plant that looks absolutely magnificent and beautiful in summer when it is nice and warm and light. And then once winter hits, it just completely gets rid of that yellow variegation because it's like, nah, I can't deal with you. So yeah, that is the story of my massive ZZ akebono, which just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Now, telling you, big muscles. I'll show you. That is in a wick setup, right? And you can see how gorgeous. How gorgeous is that? Whew! That is my ZZ akebono. All right, the ZZ akebono has been keeping secrets, but now the plants I've been actively experimenting on. These two are my Alocasia maharanis. These two plants I did the no wash method, right? Ooh, a bit fiddly. There we go. I did the no wash method for these two. And you can see here, you can see there, that band over there, that's where the original roots were sitting. And you can see where you've got the algae there and there's a big band of roots and organic matter there. But when you look further down, you can see the development of the new root system there. Oh, get that leaf out of the way. There you go. And there. It's doing really, really well. There's new growth coming through there. And these are the original leaves from when I actually got the plant from soil into LECA and the new leaves that have come through as well. So all in all, this plant is doing well. So that was the first one. And then I did a second one as well. And as you can see, like I mentioned, you know, this one has wick as well. So, you know, giving me that flexibility. If I did want to turn it into a wick setup, it can go into a wick setup. But look at that. Look, how insane is that? It just looks really, really good. Now, if you look there, at that band there, that's the original roots where I just, you know, didn't wash the plant and just put it straight into the LECA labels. And you can see some of the new roots, that really white one over there, that's a new root. And you can see more of that white, which is new roots. So another plant that's doing really, really well with the no wash method. It's definitely been way more than 6 months since I transitioned these plants from soil into semi-hydro using the no wash method. And to be quite honest, this has worked so fantastically for this Alocasia maharani. And it's definitely a method I would use more when I'm transitioning my alocasias. Look at that. Look at that. How amazing. And these alocasias do not live in a grow tent. Actually, I've got one living all the way up there and another one living in front of a window. So, you know, they're not, it's winter here, it's cold, they haven't gone dormant. So yeah, that's absolutely gorgeous. There's 2 plants in there, there's 1 plant in there. So maybe at some point I might put them all in both, all 3 of them in one pot and make a gorgeous Alocasia maharani master pot. But so far that no wash method for my plant is doing wonders. These are my 2 Dracaena plants. Take a look at them there. They are looking absolutely fantastic, living in LECA labels. Look at the green on those leaves. They just look so magnificent. I got these plants a number of months ago and I did an experiment on them. So I got 4 plants in total. 2 of them I did the no wash method, and for 2 of them I did a semi-hydroponic medium experiment where I was trying one in LECA and I tried another one in my mineral blend. And, you know, it was a very, very, very successful. Both experiments ran really well and I was hard pressed to make any difference. And my conclusion on those experiments was that, you know, with a plant like this one, you can wash, you can no wash, same thing, same result. Or if you use LECA or you use PON, the plant is going to be just as happy. So I learned a few lessons there and it was really good to know. And when I actually bought this plant, I was told that it was pretty slow growing, very, very slow growing. But that's not the experience that I've had with these plants growing in semi-hydroponics. I tell you that. When you look at them here, you can see how small they were when I first got them. And this is how big and this is how lovely they look now. Now, I did have all 4 plants in 4 separate pots, and that's just 4 pots too many. So I put 2 each in a pot like this one, just so it can look really, really beautiful. And that's 2 of them there. Now, let me show you what the all-important root system is doing. So like I said, this is in a self-watering planter. And you can see there's a wick there. But what's really fantastic is that you can see there's some roots that are peeking out of that pot over there. And I think there's some more roots peeking from that pot there. I'm just really, really in love with this plant. It looks fantastic. I mean, it's not all plain sailing, right? Because it would be a lie to say that everything's fine. If you look at that, you can see there's a little bit of, you know, yellowing leaf there and the tips, and that's an old leaf, so we'll give it that and we'll let it slide. But overall, I think this plant has done so beautifully. Now, let me show you the other one. This is the other Dracaena plant that I have. It is much bigger in a much bigger, this is a Lechuza self-watering planter, and whew, just look at those amazing plants. So I've got a much taller one and a shorter one in this pot. There was one plant that was a bit taller, but honestly, it's grown so much. But what's really lovely about this particular plant is, look at this. It's actually grown a little pup. It's grown a little pup. It is that happy. Now, some of you might remember if you've watched that video that when I was doing this experiment, my dog, Jay, actually got to the plants and decapitated one of the plants. And it is this one here. This is the plant that Jay attacked. As you can see, there's that bare patch over there. But what happened is the bit that he chewed off, it actually activated some growth points somewhere else, and I had 2 heads start to grow there. So there was a recovery, and maybe I should be thanking Jay. He made my plant look more interesting than it would have done otherwise. But I really love how this Dracaena has taken to LECA labels. It looks absolutely fantastic. Now, there isn't too much going on in the root department because this is a much, much bigger pot. I did pick it up earlier, but I'll pick it up and show you. All these pots are rather heavy. There you go. And oh, hang on. I lied. Hang on. There. You can see these are the wicks there. And you can see there's some roots peeking from the bottom there. So you can imagine what's happening inside that pot. The roots must be just looking so absolutely fantastic. That is my Dracaena plant. Let's take a look at a Monstera, shall we? This is a Monstera Thai constellation. It's one of my Monstera Thai constellations that I did something on. I'm always doing something with Thai constellations because people ask about Thai constellations all the time and they get very concerned about transitioning their Thai constellations from soil to semi-hydro, but no need to stress. They do so well. Look at that. And this is the newest leaf there. Look at that beauty. Look at how amazing that leaf looks. This plant is, I got it on a moss pole. And that's only because I just want to give it some structure. So it's got a front and it's got a back. Otherwise, left to its own devices, Thai constellations just do their own crazy thing. But yeah, it's doing well. And it's living in I forget how big this pot is, but it is a wavy leaf pot. And yeah, I turned it into a submerged setup instead of the wick setup that they recommend that you use for semi-hydro. That's because, as far as I'm concerned, Monsteras do very well in the submerged method. So let me show you what the roots are doing. Oh, look at that, people. That is the root system of my plant. Look at that. I mean, to be fair, at this point, I really do need to start thinking about repotting this plant, only because it's going to be really difficult to get it out of this pot. And because it's a special wavy leaf pot, I don't want to break it. I really, really don't. So yeah, it's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. Again, living in my living room, submerged setup, no supplemental light, but it is still looking as amazing as it can, and it's got those secondary fenestrations that have come through as well. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this plant is going. Come 2 or 3 years down the track, I think it's going to be an absolute monster. If you'd like to check out the wavy leaf pots, I've done a video that does a review of those pots. I'll link that video in the description, and in the description you can also find a link to the pots. Sticking to the theme of Thai constellations, I want to show you this other Monstera Thai constellation. This is another Thai constellation that I have. As you know by now, I have a few Thai constellations. Now, this is a plant that is a little bit of a cautionary tale, and I like to tell its story. So this plant is growing on my moss pole, was, living in LECA clables, and it was absolutely just fine. And I was walking past one day and I noticed that this latest leaf was looking a little bit limp. So when you compare this leaf to that leaf, to that leaf, or even to the newest leaf that I showed you of the other plant, it's looking a bit limp. And I thought to myself, that doesn't look good. So I went and I took the plant out of the LECA, and lo and behold, as I suspected, there was root rot. This plant was living in a submerged setup, and probably what had happened was I overfilled that reservoir and the plant started to get root rot. So I immediately took the plant out of the LECA clay balls and I put it for rehab. So I put it in hydrogen peroxide solution for a little bit, and then I took that out and I made it go through the long method again. So here we are with this plant, and it is sitting in that nutrient solution. It's been sitting in the nutrient solution for a while now, because when I took it out of the LECA, I got rid of a lot of the dead and dying roots, and there was pretty much nothing left. But this is now what I've got. That is what my plant looks like now. And ooh, look at those gorgeous spaghetti looking type roots. They really look amazing. So this plant is actually now good to go back in the LECA clay balls, and I will put it in the LECA clay balls instead of it living in that pot. But it's a little bit of a cautionary tale to make sure you're monitoring the level of your reservoir. Don't put it up too high, because if you do run the risk of the plant getting root rot. This is my Monstera Burle Marx flame. Look at that leaf, and look at that other one. That's the newest leaf of that plant, and it's living on a moss pole, and oh my gosh, it is looking absolutely beautiful. I have wanted this plant for so long. Ever since I saw Kevin's plants, Kevin Hakuna La Planta, showing off his magnificent Monstera Burle Marx flames, I wanted one. And when I got one, when I finally got one, it was just these little leaves here, you know, no fenestrations whatsoever. I put it up on this moss pole, and it's been growing, growing, growing. And there's actually a new leaf on its way. You can see, where are you, new leaf? There you are. There's a new leaf coming up over there. So yeah, it's looking fantastic. I cannot wait to get into the grow season. But what's really funny about this plant is it's got a little friend. Look at that. That is a little maidenhair fern that is growing with that plant. And I actually have no idea how that plant got there. No idea whatsoever. Was it spores? Was this left over somewhere? I don't know. But I'm going to leave it there. You know, they're friends now. I can't separate them. But this plant is growing in a Leafy brand ultimate pot set. This is a maybe, I don't know, 20 centimeter pot, I would say. It's quite big, and I actually paired it with a Leafy brand pole. So I've got a little black on black action going on there. I did an unboxing of the Leafy brand pot. So if you want to learn more about the Leafy brand items, you can just click on the video that's provided in the description. But look, I am so happy with this. I can't wait to see what that new leaf is going to look like. The dramatic transformations are fun to show you, but honestly, the plants I'm proudest of are the ones that just kept going. No drama, no rescue missions. These are the plants that prove that the system works. This here is my Philodendron Ring of Fire. Oh, look at that amazing looking plant. This plant is not on a moss pole, as I'm sure you can tell. It's living on a trellis. That's what it looks like from the back. It's living on a trellis, and yeah, it is doing well. That's the newest leaf there, looking amazing. And that there is a new leaf that is about to unfurl. And yeah, that's, you know, the stem there. And look, to be honest, I'm not really very happy with this plant, because I think the internodal spaces are pretty wide, and you can sort of see what I mean when I say that, because it's, you know, it looks like it's just getting taller and not as leafy as it could be. But, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles. I'm not giving it any supplemental light, and so what do I expect? You know, that's the best that I can do. That's the best that I'm going to get. Now, something actually has happened with this particular plant, which is really quite interesting. So when you look here, you can see this is the newest leaf. This here is the newest leaf coming from this section over here. And there's another section. So it's like there was another growth point that was activated, and this is a new section over there. So it's really quite interesting what's happening with this plant. So I'm really quite curious to see what it's going to keep doing. It is living in a 14 centimeter pot in a submerged setup as well. That's it there. Look at that. Look at all that root mass in that pot. Got this big root over here, and oh, there. It's quite very tight in that pot, and I reckon it's probably time for a repot actually. And this is the plant that I've been wanting to get rid of this plant for a really long time, but it just never seems to leave because, yeah, I think it will be here forever. But yeah, this is my little philodendron ring of fire, which was a direct transition. When I transitioned, it was really quite small when I got it. But it's just, you know, living its life in LECA clay balls. It's not really impressing me too much, but, you know, what does it care? This is a little Aglaonema. I'm actually not sure what kind of Aglaonema this plant is. I'm not really into Aglaonema names, so I don't know. But I think it would have been an Aglaonema I used when I was showing how I transition Aglaonemas from soil to living in LECA clay balls. And yeah, it's just sat there. I don't think I've showed it to you again since then. But you can see it's growing so beautifully. Look at that. New leaves looking gorgeous. It was a flowering. It does flower quite a lot. This right there is a spent flower. But yeah, look, look, look. It's beautiful. The thing I don't like about white Aglaonemas though is, you know, that, and I don't know. I'm not sure whether that's fertilizer burn. Maybe when I got the plant, it was, I don't know. If you know anything about Aglaonemas and you can tell me exactly what's going on there, please let me know in the comments below. And so because I've had that experience with this white Aglaonema, I tend not to get white Aglaonemas at all now. But this one is doing really well because you can see this little plant here. This is actually a separate plant from the big one. This is a little pup that's grown as this plant has grown. So it's doing well. It is in a 14 centimeter pot. Look at those amazing Aglaonema roots right there. Look. Looking so beautifully. This plant is definitely a winner. It sits there. It's living in this wick setup over there, and it lives in this just add plants pot. And so it just sits there and it's just looking beautiful. It's not living in a grow tent. It's just living out there next to a window. And I think it is actually loving life. Aglaonema. This is my golden-toothed tiger philodendron. It's called many names in different places. And this is a plant I've had for a few years now. I don't quite remember how long I've had it, but it is growing really, really well. One thing that's really interesting about this plant is you can see how the newer leaves have got that yellow color to them, and the older leaves are a bit more green. And I always find that every time I expose the plant to a lot more light, then the leaves become more yellow. But it's doing really well so far. It is growing, and you can see how all those leaves are just growing, and that stalk, that stem is really elongating. And it's living in a 14 centimeter pot in a submerged setup. Let me show you what those roots are doing. So when I first potted up this plant, I wasn't quite sure whether I wanted it to be in a wick or a submerged setup. So I put a wick on there. And One of the things that we were talking about in my membership at thelecaqueen.com was how it's actually probably a good idea to put wicks on everything every time you're repotting. That's what one of my members does. And that's because she then has flexibility. If you want to convert a plant to a wick setup, it's already in there and you don't have to, start unpotting the plant and putting a wick in. And the reason you might want to do that is because maybe you're going away on holiday or something and you want to have a much, much bigger reservoir, and that those wicks are going to do the job for you. So that is that plant living in the LECA Clables, and you can see some of the roots there looking really, really good. There is a bit of pon mixed in with that, and sometimes that happens, and that's okay. But this is my golden tooth tiger philodendron, just looking absolutely amazing. This is my Epipremnum Shangri plant. I repotted this plant into this rectangular planter, and oh my, look. It keeps going. It keeps going and it keeps going. The idea is to get this magnificent curtain of Epipremnum Shangri plants falling all the way to the floor. Look at how amazing and healthy those leaves look. And it is living in LECA Clables. I will prove it to you. There you go. Those are the LECA Clables there. And whew, I mean, this pot is a little bit heavy, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I love it. I love how this is progressing. I got so many cuttings from this plant. This is a plant that used to live on a moss pole a few years ago. I chopped it all up because I didn't quite like how it was going and I didn't want to take care of a moss pole. And when I got the cuttings, I put them all in there and woo, 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 woo. Best decision I ever made. I know what you're thinking. This is my Epipremnum Curly Sue. Look at that, a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. I've had this plant for a few years now. Yeah, definitely a few years. I can't remember how many, but it's been with me for a long time. And this was one of the first, cactus type succulent-y plant that I ever put into LECA Clables, and it's doing really, really well. I put it in this eco pot. Oh, there we go. It's an eco pot and it has a little it's almost like a wick setup. So it's got a little platform. So there's a little wick that goes into the reservoir there. And that's how it lives. And I thought for a plant like this, which is a bit more succulent-y, putting it in a wick setup is definitely a better way to go, because that means that the root system is not as wet as it would be if it was sitting in the nutrient solution. So because of the nature of this pot, I actually can't take the plant out to show you what the roots are doing, but the growth is clear. You can see right there, this bright green bit there, that's new growth. There's new growth everywhere, new growth coming. The thing that I'm waiting for this particular plant, it has not flowered for me yet. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get some sort of flower at some point, but yeah, it looks really good. And the thing that worries me though is when it gets really, really big and I need to repot it, I have no idea how I'm going to get that plant out of that pot. And it's not really the kind of pot that you can break. So yeah, but that's a problem for future Nora. That is my Epipremnum Curly Sue. This is my money tree, Pachira aquatica. Look at it. It is looking really, really nice, really, really healthy. And that's what it looks like. It's living in one of my leafy brand pots, and boom. Look at those roots. That's a wick setup over there. This plant, it's doing okay. There's lots of new growth coming through, but I do want to chop it up. I think come spring season, I'm going to chop it back quite a lot because I'd like it to be a bit bushier than it actually is. So you can see here, it's quite tall. It's a lovely big plant, but I want more bush. I want more stems. I want more branches. So I'm going to chop it and have it branch, and hopefully it's going to look even better in the next 2-3 years. But yeah, this is a plant I've had for a long time as well. I did a video where I showed how I transitioned it, and it's the same plant that I've had, and it's just, yeah, that is my money tree. Look at that. And I'm pretty sure this plant could have actually looked so much better if I did give it supplemental lighting and if I made sure that its reservoir was always filled. Because sometimes when I come to pick it up, it's absolutely dry, and that's on me. Okay, look at this gorgeous mama. This is my spider plant. This is my bonnie, curly bonnie. Oh, I don't know what it's called. It's a bonnie something, but that is her. Look at how gorgeous that plant is. Look at how the green of those, you know, little, oh, gorgeous. And it's got these pups. There are pups everywhere. This plant is actually a little bit smaller right now because I've just removed a lot of pups because I'm doing a video about how to propagate a spider plant from pups. So it's not as full as it was just a few days ago. But whew, man. I've repotted this plant so many times. I got this plant long before I even started growing plants in LECA clay balls. It's one of the very first plants I ever put into LECA clay balls. Whew, and man, it's grown and grown and grown. You know, sometimes it's not done so well. I've rehabbed it and it's come back, but it's just doing so well right now. And it's one of those plants that I probably will have forever. And I've just, you know, made a little pot from this for one of my friends who just had a birthday. And so, you know, it's a gift that keeps on giving. Whoo! Living in LECA clay balls, wick setup because it's living in this self-watering planter, but it can be in a submerged setup as well. I've had it in a submerged setup. It's done really well. So, you know, a spider plant can grow. Whew. Look. It can be a beautiful thing. Look at that Ficus Benjamina variegated, looking absolutely amazing, living in that 14 centimeter pot in a submerged setup in this lovely looking native Australian birds pot. And when I pick that up, woo, it just looks absolutely beautiful. I'll put that pot down and show you. Those are the roots of that plant. You can see, oh, that's a nice white one over there. So some of the roots are browner, and I guess the newer roots are the ones that are looking really white. And those leaves, look at the state of those leaves, just looking amazing. I did a video where I showed how I transitioned a Ficus Benjamina from soil to LECA, and I'll link that in the description below. But this plant has done nothing but give me leaves and leaves and leaves, and it is not, you know, dropping all those leaves and weeping as it should. So I'm loving how this is going. I think semi-hydroponics is a very good fit for a Ficus Benjamina. All right, last section, and this one is specifically for those of you who've been around for a while. Remember the mystery plant box series? These are some of the plants from those boxes. Another mystery plant box plant is this Schefflera, this variegated umbrella plant or umbrella tree. Look at how amazing that looks. It's so beautiful. And, you know, if you look right there, you can see a lot of smaller leaves. There's a lot of new growth coming through there. Look at that one. It's there. So these two leaves are actually bigger than the little one. The leaflets are bigger than the others. But there's so many of them coming. And look, I said it's winter. So I can't imagine what this plant is going to start doing by the time we get to spring. Another one that's living in a 14 centimeter pot. And the roots. Look at that. the root system is going gangbusters. Absolutely insane. So very successful transition, I would say, and a plant that's absolutely loving LECA clay balls, ambient home conditions except for light. So that also lives back there on my shelf. It has a little grow light, just, you know, this yellow color. I wasn't taking any chances. But apart from that, there's no humidifier, there's no special heating. The plant is doing really well. Whew, let's look at this little beauty next. This is my variegated fiddle leaf fig. Oh my goodness, it is so good. Let's look at it from the side. It's growing. When I first got this plant, it definitely had fewer leaves, but it is now getting so many more. And it's living in a little 10 centimeter pot in a submerged setup over there. And you can see there, the roots are coming dangling all the way down there. It's doing really well. Ooh, look at that. Roots. And so this was a direct transfer. There was no long method involved. And I think, to be quite honest, this plant is doing well. I think it's happy. And, you know, I think come 2-3 years from now, this plant is going to be something to behold, and it's going to look really amazing. It's giving me no trouble living back there on my shelf. All it's got is additional light to supplement those gorgeous variegated leaves. Otherwise, it is living out in my Melbourne winter home, looking absolutely fabulous. Another amazing success story is this Oxalis. Look at this Oxalis. It is just beautiful. Look at all the purple, and it's got little flowers there as well. This one is actually living in my mineral substrate. You know what? It is also becoming quite thirsty, I have to say, because I did put nutrient solution in this probably 2 days ago or something, but the reservoir is empty, and I don't know if you can see that. There's a little bit of condensation on there. So it is wet, but that's what that looks like. It's a bit hard because it's this mineral substrate for me to show you what the roots look like, but we all know that the root system of this plant is very thin roots, and that's one of the reasons why I put it in this, well, thin roots, and then because it's very thirsty, that's one of the reasons why I put it in this mineral blend. And I think this is the mineral blend from Habit Plants. And so that allows those roots to stay moist and just have more moisture than they would have if it was living in LECA clay balls. I did have an Oxalis living in LECA before, and I just felt that the roots weren't getting as much moisture as they possibly could. And I moved that into a pond type substrate, and it did really well. So when it came time to transition this one, I think this came from uprooted as well. I can't remember where it came from, but, you know, maybe it was a virgin to Wellings. I don't know. And so at that point, I knew that putting it in a mineral blend was going to give me these results. But I think what I also did with this particular plant was I didn't wash the roots. I think I didn't. I'm not sure if I can't quite remember now. There've been so many plants. But one of the things you can do with a plant like this is not wash the roots. So just shake off whatever potting mix or whatever organic matter the plant is growing in, and just plonk it straight in there, and boom, look at her. Look at how gorgeous. Next up is my Philodendron Congo nuclear. Look at how amazing and gorgeous this plant is looking. And you can see right there, we have a new leaf about to unfurl. It is looking fantastic. Now, if you remember what this plant looked like after I'd done the transition, there was a big yellow leaf that was there. That yellow leaf is now gone. You know, leaves like that sometimes just don't last very long. So when I first transitioned this plant from soil to LECA, the first step was the long method. And at that point, the plant was living in my grow tent. So it had a good 12 to 16 hour blast of decent light and that yellow leaf, you know, stuck around. It was fine. I transitioned the plant and I put it into LECA clay balls. Yellow leaf was still around, and then I put it out here to live in, you know, on my shelf. It does have a little bit of a grow light, but nothing as major as it did when it was in my grow tent. And so that's why that yellow leaf decided to pack up. And yeah, this one is in a 14 centimeter pot as well. And ooh, you're gonna want to see what those roots are doing. Look at that. And that is everywhere. Everywhere this plant is just amazing. Look at the variegation on that leaf. Ooh, just beautiful. And I just cleaned the leaves with my what do I call it? Shiny and pest-free spray. And if you want to see what the recipe is for that, I'll have the link in the description for you there. And don't those leaves look absolutely amazing? So the idea is to keep my leaves nice and clean, and that helps preventing, you know, pests that do love that kind of dust environment, like spider mites. My next plant is my Anthurium purple flower, another mystery plant, probably uprooted as well. And the first thing that you will notice is that we do have some purple flowers. We've got 2 of them there, and my gosh, this plant has done so well. It's doing really well, and oh, that root system is going to shock you. Look at that. Anthurium root system magic. So this one, you know, was transitioned to semi-hydro, so straight from the soil into the LECA direct method, and it is living in a submerged setup, so straight into that nutrient solution over there. And quite honestly, I think it's very happy. I'm not giving it any special nutrient to allow that flowering. I think this is probably a plant that just loves to flower all the time. So yeah, and even in saying that, there's definitely some new leaves, or let me see if I can get that there. There's some purple. There's a little bit of purple that you can see back there. There's more. Oh, I could probably get this one. There. See that one over there? There's so much more purple going on. I think this is definitely going to be a winner in my collection, and a plant that I'm going to be keeping because it's so easy to care for. It lives back there on my shelf, and it's just got a little grow light shining on it because it's winter right now in Melbourne. But, you know, I think the plant is happy. This one here is my Japonicum, Farfugium Japonicum argentinum. Look at how amazing that plant looks. I think I got this one from Uprooted, part of my mystery plant box series, and it is still alive. That's the first thing. It's been a few months since I transitioned it from soil to LECA, and the plant is still alive, and it's actually doing well. And I'll show you what those roots are doing. Also thriving. You can see there's a lot of root action going on there. Just looks really fantastic. Now, this plant is actually testing me a little bit. I have never had this plant before, so I didn't quite know what to expect from it. And I tell you, it is such a drama queen. It is a very thirsty plant, and the second I let that reservoir dry up, oh, those leaves just go, ooh, and they are crying for moisture. So I don't know how much longer I'll be able to keep this plant in my collection, to be quite honest, because I am quite notorious for letting my plants dry out a bit. Not by choice, only because, yeah, you know, life. But yeah, look at it here. It just looks absolutely beautiful. What's interesting is that some of these leaves are completely and absolutely white. White leaves, completely white, no green whatsoever. I'll keep an eye on them and see what happens. I mean, the natural thing that you would expect to happen with leaves like this is that they're going to dry up and die, because, you know, variegated leaves that are completely white never quite make it, but we'll see. No experience with this plant, so I have no idea what's going to happen. If you do have one of these and you do know what's going to happen to those white leaves, please let me know. I'd love to know what your experience is. But otherwise, this plant has done so well in LECA clay bowls, and semi-hydroponics is a winner for it for sure. So that's where we are, plant people. Over a year of growth, a lot of experiments, and a jar of a fiddle leaf fig cuttings that started it all today. Still here, still growing, going into a pot filled with LECA very soon. If you're new to semi-hydroponics and want to understand how I grow all these plants, I made a complete guide. Everything I've learned in 5 years of growing in LECA. Watch it here. Which plant surprised you most? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, give it a like. It really helps the channel. I'm Nora, the LECA Queen. Please subscribe and I'll catch you in the next one.